Professor Patrick Guillemot, President of Ferdi, fellow speakers, distinguished participants, I would like to extend my gratitude to Ferdi for convening this important event on how multilateral development banks can address the structural vulnerability of developing countries in the allocation of concessional funds. We live in a world where vulnerability remains a fundamental impediment for achieving sustainable development for the world's 92 most vulnerable countries, mainly the least developed countries, the landlocked developing countries, and the small island developing states. This is because these groups of countries are disproportionately affected by global crises, from climate change to debt distress. Despite contributing minimally to climate change, these vulnerable countries bear the brunt of climate hazards. According to the United Nations Environment Programme, the estimated adaptation needs for LDCs and SIDS amount to 0.7% and 2% of their GDP respectively, totaling approximately $29 billion annually. This is around 12% of the model adaptation cost for all developing countries. Furthermore, 31 of the 92 most vulnerable countries are either in or at high risk of debt distress. Limited access to concessional financing exacerbates the multidimensional vulnerabilities. Debt service obligations are crowding out investments in the Sustainable Development Goals, while economies remain highly susceptible to external shocks that our current financial system struggles to contain. These fiscal challenges are evident. Indeed, between 2015 and 2022, foreign exchange reserves measured in months of import declined by 21% for LDCs, 31% for LLDCs, and 25% for SIDS. Given this background, I would like to make three key observations. First, additional resources are urgently needed to finance sustainable development. The estimated $4 trillion financing gap for the SDGs underscores the urgency of this issue. The Pact for the Future calls for scaling up development finance, including expanding the lending capacity of MDBs. Second, ensuring that no one is left behind requires guaranteeing access to concessional financing for all vulnerable countries. The international community has acknowledged this need, culminating in the General Assembly's adoption of the landmark resolution on the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index last August. The MVI assesses vulnerability by measuring exposure to adverse external shocks and stressors, reflecting structural challenges, including access to development finance. Following its unanimous adoption of the MVI, the UN Secretary General emphasized that the MVI is a crucial step toward ensuring tailored support and resources reach vulnerable countries, helping to build a more resilient and just world. The MVI highlights the unique challenges faced by SIDS, LDCs, and LLDCs, with 70% of SIDS, 63% of LDCs, and 50% of LLDCs scoring above the median in vulnerability. For these countries, integrating vulnerability and resilience assessments into concessional financing mechanisms is essential. Currently, MDBs primarily use gross national income per capita, performance, and population to determine access and financial intent. With some exceptions exist, structural vulnerabilities that impede sustainable development are not comprehensively factored into these criteria. In the context of increasing impact of global challenges on vulnerable countries, it became more than critical to strengthen our engagement with the MDBs and IFIs to move from current models of resource allocation towards more inclusive and adaptive mechanisms that will ensure effective access to resources, but also predictability. The upcoming Financing for Development Conference, FFD4, also provides us with the opportunity to address these issues. The draft outcome document of the conference includes language under negotiation that calls for international community to consider using complementary measures beyond gross domestic product, including the MBI, to inform development cooperation policies and concessional financing access. Further, the UN-OHRLLS, in collaboration with the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, is actively engaging with MDBs and international financial institutions. As part of this effort, we aim at convening a roundtable in Washington, D.C. to explore strategies for enhancing access to affordable and appropriate financing that supports sustainable development in vulnerable countries. In addition to that, we should explore the FFD4 process to continue our engagement with stakeholders. Through engagements like today, we also hope to get closer to implementation of the MBI by MDBs and IFIs. We look forward to continuing our collaboration to ensure concessional financing reaches those needed most. Thank you.